In this video, I want to share with you 5 principles that will outline how to be effective with your young adult children who may be living with you or may not be living with you, but how to structure the relationship in a way that you can be effective around drawing boundaries and essentially how to parent a young adult. Okay? So here's the deal. The first thing that you want to consider is the nature of your structure. The benefit of them being a young adult, meaning they're over 18, and by young adult, I mean between 18 and 25, let's say. The benefit of them being that age is that they can live on their own. And you can politely say, you are now able to live on your own, young man, young woman, young person. That is the great benefit that you have in this situation that you don't have as leverage when they're an adolescent or a teenager necessarily, right? So you want to use the principle of structure to inspire them to be independent. That's my definition of structure and boundaries that I use across all of my practices and everything that I've developed this over the 70,000 hours or so in 23 years that I've been working with young people, including teenagers and young adults and families. So structure is meant to inspire independence. Right? That is its number one thing. Now, inside of that, of course, is safety, but that's elementary stuff. Inspire them to be independent. So how do you do that as for a young adult? Use leverage, right? You can create very clear expectations around how they are to live and how they are to be responsible in your home. And if they don't meet those expectations, you can very clearly say, this is not working. You have 1 month, 2 months to find your own. I'll give you a starting point of a loan of $500 for you to get started, and then you will be on your way and your bags will be packed by this date. Try to get that clear in yourself that you can make that decision for them. And I'll talk about how to have that conversation at the end here as point number 5. Okay, so number 1, use structure to inspire independence and you can leverage the fact that you don't have to keep them at home. If they are behaving in certain ways or showing up in certain ways that doesn't work for your family, for your household, for you as a roommate, then you get to say, here's what I expect. Here's the time frame that this needs to shift with. And if it doesn't shift, there is the door. I love you and blessings to you to create your own independent life logistically, okay? So that's number 1, is use structure to inspire their independence. Point number 2, principle 2, distinguish emotional support from logistical support, okay? Your emotional support is unconditional. You could say. You will always love them. You will always care about them. You may talk with them at times. You may not talk with them at times. You will make yourself available when it suits you to be available for them. Your care is unending, and this is all in that emotional world. You can distinguish this from logistical support. Meaning just because you don't house them or you don't give them certain financial or tactical or logistical support doesn't mean you don't care. Now, they may say that if they're in a tough place, well, you don't even care about you, you're just abandoning me. I hear you. I hear that's your experience of what I'm doing right now. That's not my intent behind my decision. Me requesting, actually demanding that you leave on this day, for example, is not I'm not angry about it. I'm not frustrated about it. I'm just clear. Do I have anger and frustration that came from how you're behaving? Yes. But around this decision, my intent is to give you independence and for me to take care of myself. That's what's behind this. Well, you're abandoning me. I hear that's your experience based on what's happening, and my intent is not to have you feel abandoned or to abandon you. I'm not abandoning you. I know it feels like that for you, and you get to have that emotional experience, young man, young woman, young person. But that's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a clear decision, and I understand that the impact that it has on you has you feel abandoned, right? Let them deal with their emotional world around that, and you can be supportive as much as you want or not. But just distinguish your emotional support from the logistical support. Your logistical support is taking a new form. Your emotional support is still deeply caring, committed to them, available to them in certain ways. They can call, you can talk with them, come over for dinner once a week, right? So make a really clear distinction for yourself around emotional support and logistical support. They are not necessarily tied together, right? So number one, use structure as a way to inspire them. 2, distinguish emotional and logistical support. And 3, make clear expectations and let them choose to meet them or not. Right? So this goes back to number 1 around the structure. Be very clear about what your expectations are for them. And they get to make their choice. You can either meet the expectations or not. If you don't meet the expectations, we will start a conversation in the path towards you living independently on your own if they're living at home. If you make clear expectations around how they're living, let's say at college, and you are funding their college, then that might look like decreased financial support and them taking on loans, for example. Or maybe they need to get a job. Well, I don't have time for a job. I'm working so hard in school. Well, then meet the expectations that I have for you, right? If they don't like the expectations, have them create a proposal. Mom, Dad, I think having a 3.0 GPA is way too hard for me. It's way too high, and I just can't do it. Then you all get to consider, do you want to lower your standard or your expectation? Okay, you have to get a 2.5. Or you say, no, you're more than capable of getting a 3.0. Find a way to do it. If that doesn't happen, here's what's going to happen from our end. We're going to decrease our financial support in a certain way. And you might know that they're partying or they're not really actually like applying themselves in the ways that you can. So you can use the leverage that you have, in this case, financially with college, or maybe staying with you. I've worked with some families when their kids come home on breaks that it just creates such chaos in the family. So you could say, you won't be coming home for this spring break. And no, you won't be staying here alone. We're going to go to Florida. And if you want to show up better with the family and be a contributor and be kind to your brother and sister and to us, we'd love to have you. But for this time, that's not going to happen. And this time, that's not going to happen. We're going to Florida, and I don't know what you'll do. You'll have to make a plan. And no, you won't be staying at our house alone, right? They get to choose or not. Make your expectation. Don't convince them to meet your expectation, because they need to find that strength, that resilience inside of themselves to make the expectations. That's the growing moment for this young person. And ideally, they should have experienced that through their teenage years from 12 to 18, but they haven't for whatever reason, for a variety of reasons, I'm sure. So make your expectations clear and then allow them to meet them or not. They can choose to meet the expectations or not. Either way is fine. You are nonplussed. You are chill. You are a practicing Buddha in your chair. Just making expectations, they get to opt in or not. Let them. Right? And make this as a practice for yourself. I know it won't be that clean and clear, and you can tell I'm being a little light with it. And I know it'll be emotional. It might be hard for them to not be there, hard to draw these boundaries. But believe me, this is great for them and fantastic for you as a parent, okay? So we use structure in a way that will create independence. Number 2, you distinguish emotional support from logistical support. Number 3, you make clear expectations, let them choose or not. And number 4, they are 100% responsible for themselves. Now, this might sound kind of obvious, but stick with me here. Through adolescence, from the ages of, I would say, 13 to 18, over that time, you as a parent have a certain responsibility for how they act, who they are as a person. And I would say, from the age of 0 or conception, I would say you have a lot of responsibility. I don't think it's ever 100%, but it's close to 100% when they are not close to 100%, maybe 90%, because of how you are emotionally, how you parent when they're an infant has a certain molding way of who they become as people. Right? I'm not talking about like whether they're crying or not and all of that. There's a lot of organic pieces in biology happening there. I'm talking about as they get towards the age of 16, 17, 18, you've done what you've done as a parent. You've done probably your best. You've made some mistakes. You've had some successes. You've instilled some values. You've attempted to instill some values. You've just done the best you could to create them to be a good person. As they reach that age of 18, 19, 20, you are no longer responsible for the person that they are. They are now responsible for who they are as a person. They don't like some ways that you parented them. Fine. They can talk about it with you or not. It's like, deal, okay? You don't like the person that you are? Great. Find a way to become the person that you are. You are, as a parent, are no longer responsible for the person that they are. You've done your best. You've made mistakes. Fine. End. Complete. They are responsible. I work with a lot of young adults, sometimes especially the ones who are struggling a lot, who hold their parents responsible for the way that they are, for the kind of person that they are. And it's an expression of victimhood that's being expressed, right? They are victims. Now, let's distinguish something. They may have been victims of trauma or victims of a perpetrator, right? And in that case, it is awful. I've actually worked with horrific circumstances. Nonetheless, after those things have happened, that person, that victim, let's say, or that survivor is maybe a better term that we can use, is responsible for their own healing. So when people are young adults and they're out of your household and they're living independently, they may be dependent on you for finances or for college, or maybe there's a stipend situation that you've worked out with your young adult, but they are 100% responsible for the people that they are, right? They don't like the way that you parented them or things that you said or did to them. Fine. Find avenues to heal, to become the person that you want. So I'm sharing this so that you can relate to them in that way, and that you relieve yourself of the responsibility of the person that they are at this age. Hopefully that's been happening up through their teenage years. But really make a choice for yourself to free yourself from them and to free you from them, right? And to free themselves from you. Yeah? So really embrace this, that you are no longer responsible. They are 100% responsible for all of it, okay? So, all right, number 1, use structure in a way that inspires them to be independent. 2, distinguish emotional support from logistical support. 3, make your expectations clear. Let them choose to opt in or not. And 4, they are 100% responsible for their lives, right? Number 5, this is the difficult conversation. There are 2 ways to have a conversation about how it's not working in the house. One is relational and one is logistical. Always start with a relational conversation when things are not working with your young adult. This is actually true for adolescents, but I want to underscore this now. What I mean by relational conversation is you talk about how their behavior, how their attitude, how their values, them as a person is impacting you. It doesn't mean that you're going to make any logistical choices at this time. It might mean that, but always start with how they're showing up as having an impact on you. And share both, the positive and the negative impact, right? If they are like a family, for example, they're young adult, they've agreed to live at home while they start their first semester of college online, and they're sleeping all the time, they're leaving a mess in the kitchen, their room is a mess, they just seem very depressed and low, and it's having a real impact on the vibe of the family. This is a great time to have that relational conversation. George, we need to have a talk. This really isn't working for us. Your sleep habits, what you don't do in the kitchen and cleaning up, your door dashing at 4 a.m. There's all these things that are not working. You just seem depressed. And to be honest, you're bringing kind of a down vibe in the house. And it kind of sucks. Now, I'm saying this to you because I want to support you and I want to shift this. If this continues over time, it won't work for you to live here, right? So you can kind of put a pin in something for the future, but for right now, what you're talking about is like, what can I do to support you to get out of this? This doesn't work. We're roommates, right? Not only are we family members, but we're roommates, and it really doesn't work the way that you just are. And I want to help you in all the ways that I can. And I know I can't solve your problem for you in your whole issue. That's your responsibility, but I'm here to support you. And I got to tell you, if it doesn't shift in the next couple months, this isn't going to be a long-term solution for you living here. I don't know what the solution will be for you. And you might have to find that with our support, of course, but it may not work for you to be here. So you're taking a relational approach to this conversation. You're not making threats. you're reminding them of certain expectations, but you're really your intent is to connect with them and to share and to understand. You're sharing a bit of yourself. You're wanting to understand their world and what their struggle is about, why they're sleeping at all hours of the day, or why they're playing video games and going out and like making friends in the community. And then you can refresh your expectations around what they are around living in the household. You might even have to re-clarify them, because you may not have said in the agreement when they initially came to live with you that you have to be a generally positive person, right? Or a person who kind of contributes emotionally to the family in a certain way, or at least is neutral, right? And doesn't kind of suck energy away from the other family members. So, and the second kind of conversation is a tactical conversation. That's what we talked about earlier. It's about drawing a line in the sand and saying, listen, George, we've been doing this now. It's been 2 months since we had that conversation where we said things really needed to change, and things haven't changed. In fact, they've gotten worse. And it breaks my heart in a way to tell this to you, but you just can't stay here anymore. It's not working. So we're going to look at having an end date of 2 months from now, actually a month and a half from now. It's 6 weeks. We're going to give you $500 to get on your feet, and we may consider co-signing on a lease with you, right? And you might have some other ideas about this. And you said, we've had a lot of conversations. The first conversation we had was 2 months ago. It really hasn't shifted, and I'm not really inspired that it's going to shift. It may, and if it does in the next couple weeks, then great. But for now, we're planning on having you move out. And again, if you want our help to find a place or to go through anything that you need to, fantastic. They may walk away during this conversation, fine. Right? This is the more of a tactical conversation that ideally you're connected inside of it, but really the goal of this conversation is to communicate what your line is and what your decision is. This is not a conversation where you're trying to convince them to be a certain way or trying to rescue them or anything like that. You're just communicating information. So that's the second type of conversation you can have that's more tactical. A lot of times those conversations will blend, but I think it's been very helpful for families when we distinguish between a relational conversation and a tactical conversation. All right, so if you made it through this video, congratulations. I think you're really equipped to go back into your relationship with your young adult, refreshed. Let's do a quick recap. Use structure in a way that inspires them to be independent. 2, distinguish emotional support from logistical support. 3, make your expectations clear. Let them opt in or not. Totally fine either way. 4, they are 100% responsible for their lives, period. And 5, distinguish those 2 types of conversation when it's not working, relational and tactical. Leave a comment below if you have any questions. I'd love to give you more videos and relevant information. And hit a thumbs up or a subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Help support the channel. All my best to you.